It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Today is 9/11, and we're going to talk a little bit about what transpired last night with the president on his speech to the American people. I know I had set up a different run this morning, but I'm incensed by these two issues. One, the necessity to override the governor's veto on the Second Amendment Preservation Act, which we just covered in our last two segments, and the issue of Syria and the debacle that is tearing, frankly, through our federal government right now. I watched the video of the president speaking last night to the nation. And, you know, I'm no fan of his. I don't think anyone has any doubt about that. I don't want to gild the lily here. I don't like the guy. I don't think it's any secret that I've declared him to be incompetent and a usurper of authority and power. I classify him and believe him to be a tyrant. And I make no bones about it. I don't try to hide it. I don't try to couch it in nice flowery words. I read this morning a position paper written by this was on National Journal, and the title of the article is "Syria Tells You Everything You Need to Know About Barack Obama. The security crisis puts the president's best and worst attributes on display for the whole world to judge." And I'm just going to read you this article. It's not that long, and I think it's important, and then I'm going to give you my response to it. The good news is we're not at war. By the way, the author of this article is Ron Fournier. The good news is we're not at war. The bad news is almost everything else about President Obama's handling of Syria, the fumbling and flip-flopping and marble-mouthing, undercut his credibility and possibly with it his ability to lead the nation and world. As he addressed a global audience Tuesday night, liberal elites blindly accepted the White House fiction that Russian intervention this week was somehow part of Obama's master plan. Their conservative counterparts practically rooted against a diplomatic breakthrough, preferring an Obama black eye over peace. Obama won. Obama lost. The fact is, it's too soon to keep score. In the long view of this past week, I suspect the Syria standoff will stand as an example of the best and the worst of Obama's leadership. Granted, in the heat of the moment, it's far easier to catalog the worst. The best. Item 1. Open-minded. The man elected in part as repudiation of President George Bush's narrow approach to decision-making never closed off his options. He is paying a price for waffling. More on that later. But the president deserves credit for rethinking his plan to wage war without congressional approval. For anybody unwilling to cut Obama some slack, ask yourself, what would Bush and Dick Cheney have done? 2. Unflappable. From all public appearances, this was the no-drama Obama his aides brag about. Certainly, he was affected by public criticism and even swayed by polling, but the president kept searching for a way out of a complicated situation. He may have stumbled into peace, but that's better than rushing into war. 3. Principles. He deserves credit for trying to do something about the slaughter of innocents. The red line that looks laughably opaque today will look better in time if, and this is a big if, Syrian chemical attacks stop. In his address from the White House, Obama made a compelling moral argument to respond to last month's chemical attack in Syria. Quote, "The world saw in gruesome detail the horrible nature of chemical weapons." End quote. That's his best of. Now he addresses the worst. Naive about the levers of power. Where to start? Obama reversed course on congressional authorization at the last minute. After a private chat with his chief of staff, and to the surprise of his national security team, all in violation of presidential best practices. He then left the country on a quixotic trip to Russia, allowing misgiving to grow in Congress and the public before he could build a case for striking Syria. Boxed in, Obama then seized upon a Russian proposal to put Syria's weapons in the hands of the international community. It's an impractical solution, a fig leaf. Either Obama trusts Russian President Vladimir Putin, a mistake, or he is a partner in deceit, an outrage. A Democrat strategist who works closely with the White House and who requested anonymity to avoid political retribution told me, quote, "This is one of the most humiliating episodes in presidential history," end quote. His next worst listing is too cute by half. Obama and his allies are masters of spin, packaging partial truth and outright distortion to a malleable public. With Syria, their dark arts are on full display. There is no other way to explain the White House disowning Secretary of State John Kerry's calls for Syria to turn over its stockpiles until the savvy Putin seized on the off-the-cuff remark as a way to protect ally Bashar al-Assad. Suddenly, the White House is touting the Putin plan as their brainchild, an outcome Obama had in mind when he traveled to Russia. Don't buy it. A broader problem is the Obama White House's inability to break through the clutter of 21st century media to educate and persuade Americans on policy, a communications conundrum that dates to the 2009 healthcare debate. Third, and his final point, no friends. No student of the presidency would claim that Obama's problems with Congress could be solved simply by schmoozing them. There are structural and political problems that no amount of alcohol can solve. But as a matter of history and common sense, Obama could do better for himself and his causes if he got to know Congress better, if he listened and engaged in a way that pushes leaders toward solutions that help both sides. Instead, Obama has what one former top advisor called a, quote, check-the-box approach to Washington relations. He'll spend enough time to maintain appearances, nothing more, and lectures people who demand to be heard. And so, as he faced an international and constitutional crisis, Obama and his team were in a familiar state, isolated, insular, and alone. Whenever his leadership is questioned, Obama and his allies accuse the critics of overstating the power of the presidency and understating the intransigence of the opposition. Their argument has some merit. At home, the presidency has ceded power to Congress in recent years, and the Republican Party is unusually obstinate. Abroad, Putin, Assad, and other nefarious world leaders cannot be swayed by reason alone. But Obama bears more responsibility than he is willing to admit, and polls show a growing number of voters question his leadership. The total number of comments that were attributed to Ron Fournier and his story here, and if you were to read them, there are some 1,800 of them already. I can't find a single one that supports this president in anything he's done. I mean, nor Fournier, by the way, because the issue here is that this is a thinly veiled attempt for the press to now play a CYA game with us, the American population, because they've betrayed us and they have withheld the truth in an effort to promote this president long before, and which they should long ago have stopped doing, in favor of their actual function and role, which is to act as a watchdog for government abuse. I'm going to read you a couple of these comments because they're quite telling. The Obama nation is the pure unedited definition of incompetence. This guy writes about the author, "This guy is surely on LSD. At home, the presidency has ceded power to Congress in recent years, and that is an absolute statement, truthful statement. It's anything but the opposite. The executive has been absorbing, and in fact, Obama said that in his speech himself. So this kind of diatribe is really cover for the fact that the press in this country has completely abdicated their role as a protector and an exposer of government operating outside of its constitutional and authorized boundaries and working to oppress the people. After I watched the president last night, I sat down and I had to write something out. And I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to read it to you because I think it's the one thing that just kept reverberating through my mind. Here it comes. What is abundantly and painfully clear is that the job of president is now, and has been for many terms past, undertaken by men with no honor, integrity, honesty, or truthful interest in what is actually best for the nation. This episode is only symptomatic of the decline in our ethical standards of both the political class and the average constituent. We can accept the teachable moment of this debacle and return to the principles and virtues of the original intent of our founders. Granted, they were imperfect men, but no one can deny their willingness to place their personal best interests aside for the benefit of the nation as a whole. What we see here today, and many yesterdays, is the wholesale loss of the concept of public service. Our entire nation is run, operated, and manned by grip-notching gunmen who will do anything to play in the power circles. Hasn't anyone else noticed the every man a little dictator approach to governing? That is spawned by the players' inability to differentiate service to the nation from service to themselves. You will note that our political environment is now a twisted, smoking ruin because we incentivize the wrong kinds of people into office. Instead of citizen legislators who make a temporary sacrificial service-based adjustment to their life, we have power-hungry thugs who deem their service a career. Until we get money and perpetual power trips out of politics, we will continue to see this descent into squalor, as only the worst of the worst pontificate before us, declaring their mistaken, myopic view of their own self-serving greatness. Not to overemphasize our founders' intentions due to the unpopular nature of honoring their efforts, but their vision was of a microscopic federal government, a miniature state government, and self-governance for the rest of us. Losing sight of these principles has led us to this point: a land of spin, political expediencies, stumbling, failed statesmanship, and the inevitable consequence of allowing our alleged representatives and leaders to come from the wrong pool of national human resources. Restoration to our nation will only come when we restore ethics, true patriotism, actual sacrifice, and integrity into the service positions that direct and lead our nation. Government's only function is to protect and defend the citizens and the nation as a whole. When those charged with wielding that sword turn it upon the nation in a thrashing and writhing grasp for power, the nation loses. No one exemplifies these truths better than our current president. The problem that we experience today is that, and you know, I talked about this yesterday. We have we've dangled all the wrong carrots in front of all the wrong people. You know, our founders, their idea was that our nation would be based upon a group of individuals who would, number one, be willing to step up to the plate and sacrifice a short-term period of their life to step into service to the nation, and then to go back to whatever it was that they did before. To go back to being, the baker, the candlestick maker, or whatever it was that they did prior. They advocated, actually, that the job be voluntary. And really, they agreed to compensation, but the compensation was basically to be so nominal that it was really to cover expenses more than anything. Now, I get the reality of that would be problematic in the sense that if that were the case, we'd only have the moneyed who would run for office. But guess what? That's what we've ended up with anyway, isn't it? I mean, let's be candid here. With money and lobbying involved in politics, those people who truly would like to step in there, who have the right ethics, who have the right outlook, who have the right spirit and intent, can't get in. The reality is this, and term limits won't solve it, and the idea of, just putting in other people from non-parties won't solve it. There's more to it than this. I mean, those are symptoms of the real problem here. But the real problem, the real crux of this issue, the real failing of America is the fact that we no longer have people of honor and integrity and ethics and honesty and morality, or the true interest of the nation running for office. Everyone views it as a lottery ticket. And that goes all the way from the top down to the very bottom. Whether that is a person who is sitting there in a small position in a city council. I mean, I'm reminded of going to our own city council meetings and watching these people sit up there with arrogance and hubris that is just astounding. In the middle of bent elbow nowhere, these people are a big fish in a drop of water. And yet they've got this power complex that is just frightening to behold. I'm not sure if it's possible to have people in power and positions of authority who don't let the power go to their mind, go to their head, go to their heart, go to their speech, go to their actions. Because human nature is failed. It's flawed. And anyone who is involved in the process of governing others approaches it from the wrong perspective. They approach it from the perspective that I am going to apply my wisdom to these situations. And I beg to differ with you, but that is completely the wrong approach. We don't have people who run for office of humility. We don't have people who run in office for the purposes of feeling as if they are doing a short-term duty to benefit the nation or the city or the state or the county or their school board. Instead, they look at it like a way that they can impose their views upon someone else. Well, the only way I can get my way seen is to get into the seat of power. The only way I can institute my concepts, my era, my theory, is to be in the seat. The problem with that, of course, is pretty obvious. Who says your views are right? And if you're approaching it from that perspective, I can almost guarantee you that you don't have the moral and ethical and standing to hold that position, nor the integrity of the honor. Just the fact that you believe your views are infallible tells me everything I need to know about you. Why do you think that this program and I and America's Voice Now constantly promote and push individuals to step up to the plate and run for office? I mean, who am I talking to when I say that? I'm talking to the people who are too humble to think they can do it. I'm talking to the people who think, well, I'm not so great. What makes me think I'm qualified to run for office? You see, I'm shifting the paradigm. I'm saying that humility is actually what qualifies you for office. And I would encourage you to give some serious thought to it. Because we're not going to take this thing down by getting these tyrants to vote themselves out. It's that simple. We'll never see term limits. We'll never see an end to lobbying. We'll never see an end to the constant self-preservation mentality, whether that's from the dog catcher all the way up to the President of the United States. Because the people who are looking for jobs today in government are seeking the wrong thing. They're seeking personal benefit, and they're seeking safety. Safety because a job in the federal government or the job in the state government or a job in the conservation department or a job working for the DMV is safe and secure because nobody ever gets fired from government. That, I submit to you, is the complete wrong approach. That is completely what we don't want. What we do need are people who are willing to say, I'm willing to step up and make a sacrifice. I'm willing to put my best interest aside for this short window while I do what's best for the nation, the state, the county, the city, the town, the village, the wild dogs running in the neighborhood. You're listening to America's Voice. My name is Michael Evans. You can find us on the web at America's Voice Now. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. You can also find this and every other program that we do posted up on YouTube. We stream it live on our website at americasvoicenow.org. You can watch it 8 to 10 every morning Central Time. Or you can go and see it afterwards by going to YouTube and looking it up at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. We'll be back in just a minute. Stick with us.